I should have paid attention to how Liz did this. It's, oh, that's not it. Oh, is it? Oh goodness. Oh, here, wait, right here. And then, maybe right there. Yeah, there we go. All right. Thank y'all so much for today, for that. Andronika Mars with Housing NOLA. Pleasure to be here with you all today. And we've been asked to talk about the state of housing here in New Orleans. And specifically, we want to focus on our 10-year investment plan, which the Housing Trust Fund is the foundation of, the anchor of. And so, there we go. So we also want to ground it with everybody to remind folks that Housing for All is an economic impact as well. It's not simply about the morality of the guaranteeing housing for all. I know we can all agree on that, but it's also just smart strategy. And so this is a statistic we've been tracking for a number of years over the number of renters and homeowners who are experiencing a housing cost burden, meaning they're spending more than 30% of their income on their total housing costs. That's about it's 40,000 renters and 29,000 homeowners. That's about 70,000 households just in New Orleans alone, just in the city, who are experiencing that economic burden. If those households were actually paying that 30% or below, those households would have $500 million of their own money, of their own economic power every year to wield on their own behalf in this city. That's big. They can be the job creators. They can drive the economy. They can square up against the likes of Jeff Landry and the data centers and the other false solutions that are being offered. We can take care of ourselves if we make sure that we have what we need. Over 30 years, that's $15 billion in the hands of the people of New Orleans, deciding what they want and what they need. So Housing for All isn't simply, again, mawkish sentimentality. It is smart, disciplined strategy that we must adopt, and we must figure out how to invest in ourselves. And we're so glad and grateful to this committee for prioritizing that with the work you're going to be doing over the next couple of months to continue the guardrails on how the Housing Trust Fund is invested. We want to recap, and again, some of the pieces that Maxwell talked about in his presentation, we've got them a little bit more specific here, breaking down the household demands and the supply and the misalignment. Right now, we actually do have enough houses for everyone who is here, everyone who is doubled up, everyone who is on the streets of New Orleans because we've lost so much in population. We have 10,000 vacant occupiable homes alone. The problem is those homes aren't affordable for the average citizen. They aren't affordable for a number of reasons, largely which is talking about the insurance crisis, which we're going to get into, but also utility costs, the high cost of capital. This is a big part of the problem. We have a dumb housing mix, which is why we promote the smart housing mix, because we have a massive misalignment. As you all will see, for the households that make less than 30% of area median income, that's people making less than $25,000 a year. That's anybody who makes $7.25 an hour, by the way, and they're the head of their household. 41,000 households for homes where we only have 25,000 homes that are priced to meet that need. And part to talking about some of the constraints and some of the problems that we have a dumb housing mix because we have 58,000 households. These are renters and homeowners together here who make more than 100% of the median income, more than $80,000 a year in their households. And there's only about 40,000 homes and apartments for them. So guess what they're doing? They're pushing down into the market, into homes that families can afford, that single young professionals can afford, and they're taking their spots. Meanwhile, we're getting pressure from the most vulnerable, from the hardest working, from the people who are key to our economy. So the pressure is enormous from top to bottom. And the people in the middle are getting squeezed. They're getting squeezed, and they're getting squeezed on all ends, and this is just simply not sustainable. One of the things that we talk about with the Housing for All investment is we break down what it costs to retrofit the units and homes in order to make them affordable. It's not simply just building. We are very proud of the fact that the 21st Century Road to Housing bill has passed, but I disagree passionately with our senior senator from Louisiana, who thinks that we can build our way out of this problem in Louisiana, and who recently published a editorial letter to the editor suggesting that we should be building our way out of this problem. That's not what we should be doing. We should be retrofitting our way out of this problem. We should be investing in making our homes more energy efficient, more green, more renewable, more healthy. And so breaking that down, we have category one, where we are talking about making our homes sustainable with energy efficiency and solar and fortified roofs. That brings a total of, we need about $3.8 billion in investments for those homes that are necessary to meet that category. Then we go to category two, where we're talking about preservation and acquisition rehab. We have about 9,000 homes and apartments that were built post-Katrina using low-income housing tax credits and get people home, to bring them home. Those homes are also facing the same operating struggles that regular homeowners and landlords, mom and pop landlords, are facing as well. So those 9,000 homes need significant investment. These are not the kind of investments that the trust fund should be providing. A, it's not, we don't have enough money. And B, we don't have enough money. And C, these are actually, we need to be looking to recapitalize these projects. We need to be ensuring that the trust fund is laying the groundwork on the quick, immediate needs, and we can demonstrate to the larger market that we can attract those dollars. We can bring those dollars in. New construction. So there is a need to build, not immediately, but there is a need to build, because we want to talk about getting on a growth track. We want to talk about meeting the needs of the people who make New Orleans all that it is. We have found that there are almost 55,000 workers who work in Orleans Parish but cannot afford to live here, making less than $50,000 a year. They are working here because they're from here. They are part of this community and they cannot afford it. They've never made it back from Katrina, or they've been displaced in the last 7 years. We need to bring them home. That's another $16 billion in investments over time that to meet the needs of those folks, as well as giving people the chance to become first-time homeowners with new energy-efficient homes that are built to last. And we can't forget about the fact that we need to be looking at direct financial assistance to households. We need to be talking about, Maxwell mentioned that we're unlikely to get any new vouchers, but we need to. We need to attract new vouchers. We need to attract direct rental assistance to stabilize folks in existing homes, because regardless of how much investment we make, and we must make these investments, we must put fortified roofs on, we must make homes energy efficient to bring down those operating costs. Again, folks who are making $7.25 an hour need help. We're not going to, and again, we can help them by, increasing the minimum wage, but that's not, y'all don't do that. So we can talk about coordinated strategies and advocacy, absolutely, to ensure that that happens. But until then, let's talk about closing that gap and making sure there's rental assistance. Also talking about helping our homeowners stay in their homes. We need to be talking about wealth building, not just simply as a catchphrase, but making sure that folks can actually leave their homes to their families, that they are not burdened by cumbersome tax policies that don't make any sense, that the rules that will help them stay in their homes genuinely seek to make sure that that asset can pass on to their children as a benefit. We talk about heirship property all the time. We talk about making sure that people have their ducks in a row, but we also need to make sure that they can keep their home. And so we break down this $31 billion investment into those four categories. And we know that, of course, the trust fund, nor can the city of New Orleans, with its financial issues, seek to make all of this funding available. But we can and must, the trust fund must lead the way to make sure that these dollars can come in, and we can demonstrate that discipline and the strategic investment. But the city of New Orleans also has to recognize that this is our problem. This is a $31 billion problem that the city has that is reflected every day in issues that pop up. Everything from people not being able to pay their property taxes, the loss of population, and on and on and on. And so this is why when we talk about local policies and priorities, we want to make sure that we're looking at what's happening at the city, what's happening at the state, and we need to be talking about federal policies, things that align with meeting our needs, not just thinking that the city can do this on its own. The people of New Orleans took an extraordinary step forward with putting this in the charter. They said, we're going to put our own money on the table for us first and foremost. That show of faith must be met. It must be met by strategic investments, by people who recognize that the people of New Orleans cannot do this alone, and we're all in this together. And what I want to share, make sure that we share today on the state of housing in New Orleans, is a semi-annual report. As you all know, we take great pride in putting out a report card annually to talk about the state of housing, but we also, because it's a little early for the report card, we are able to share with the committee the state of housing where we are now and how we are moving towards not simply meeting goals, but how are we moving on managing the investments that we already have, recognizing that the trust fund dollars are not going to be included in this, they can't. But in the 6 months under the first year of the Housing for All strategy, we've seen some marked changes and challenges. So the City of New Orleans, with the Office of Community Development, the Finance Authority, the Housing Authority, and NORA, brought online about 534 units in the first 6 months of the report, which would be great. The problem is that we have underutilized the vouchers. And so losing about 566 of them. This is some of this push-pull that we've been seeing. So we brought online 534 units, and we have lost 566 vouchers. And the vouchers haven't disappeared. The folks have been pushed out, displaced, they may have died, and they've not been able to lease up those vouchers. We expect that number to change by the end of the year, but unless we are back where we were before, which is where we were before about 2 years ago, where the Housing Authority was unable to fully utilize all of its vouchers, running about 1,000 vouchers being unutilized over a 3-year period. We're hoping that that's not the case. We're hoping that, frankly, the pressures around insurance and utilities have landlords more interested in working with voucher holders. That's what we've been seeing. We've been seeing some really amazing programs that the Housing Authority has been standing up, helping people to get into high opportunity areas, but sometimes the math just doesn't math. And we must contend with the fact that we have a number of landlords who have biases towards voucher holders. And no matter how good a deal it is, and no matter how smart it is for this city, we have people who refuse to rent to voucher holders. And so, again, that's why that's an important stat to watch out for and to look out for and to make sure that we're not going off the track. So that means right now we're net negative 32 units. Again, this is only a mid-year point, so we're hoping to see these numbers change. We're hoping to see the utilization numbers get up, and the Housing Authority shares these numbers as a point in time. So again, we're going to be checking back in with them in a couple of months to talk about what's going to be happening. And Habitat for Humanity has brought online 1 unit in the last 6 months, in the first 6 months of the report, without any subsidy. So this is a unit that Habitat for Humanity privately fundraised for, so no public subsidy, no public land. And we're tracking that as well. So we're tracking the private market as well as what our public dollars are doing and impacting. You all should note the way we're playing around with this, and for those of you in the data committee and who work with the leadership board, y'all should let us know what y'all think about this new reporting way that we're sharing the data. So we have it broken down into 2 segments. The 88,000 homes and apartments that were brought online in housing opportunities that were brought online the first 10 years after Katrina, so we could show what you could do with $50 billion. We could have done more. We needed to do more. And if we had some plans in place, we could have done more. And over the last 10 years, the 4,300 units that were brought online, not with $50 billion, not with a trust fund. So we are learning, we need to learn what deliberate investment looks like, as well as, not so intentional or strategic investment, and resolve to do better. Next up, we also want to go over, just really briefly, those 500 units, how they break down by the different partners. The Finance Authority brought online most of those. Some were brought online by the Louisiana Housing Corporation, NORA, none by the Housing Authority, and one by Habitat, and 33 by OCD. Now, these numbers, if you're doing your math, add up to more than 500 units. That's because this slide also demonstrates the need and the layering that happens with the public resources, right? There's very few units, except that Habitat unit, that don't have multiple subsidies. And so this is also something that we've done over the years of negotiating with our partners in the public agencies, because they all get lumped together in that big 500 units, and they all want to say, well, we want to see what we're doing. We want to show what we're doing. So we do this graphic. This is, again, we're workshopping this graphic. It's changed over the years. Anybody who doesn't like it or has better ideas of improvement, please let us know. And then we also want to talk about the snapshot of the population issues over time. So since 2017, population has gone down from 393,292 folks to 362,701 in the 2024 census, U.S. Census stats. That's bad, right? We've been talking about this ad nauseum, the loss of almost over 30,000 folks in 7 years. Here it is in black and white. At the same time, median home value has skyrocketed. At the same time, rent has gone up. Income has stayed pretty stagnant. And so, and this is also where we talk about breaking down the cost burden issues and things like that. So we also wanted to make sure, because the trust fund prioritized insurance, that we talk about the insurance crisis. Louisiana citizens are desperate for any solution. They need one, and we need to be talking about, again, homeowner assistance, stabilizing households, spending about $200 million annually as a state to help 200,000 low-income homeowners stay in their homes by paying their insurance bills. We also need to be talking about the Fortified Roof Program. For the 445,000 roofs that we need, it's going to cost about $6.1 billion. This is across the state. And then we also have to make sure, again, the policy work is incredibly important. We have to ensure that premiums are actually lowered. The investments that the Trust Fund Advisory Committee are going to oversee over the next few months, like the Fortified NOLA program and the other Fortified programs, we need to make sure that those investments result in savings for homeowners. This is a high-level summary of it. We've got the trust fund, and so that's us. Oh, wait. And we want to close out by reminding everybody that, if we displace, look, Ellen and I both came to this thought a few years ago, and we love saying it. If we displace everyone that makes New Orleans cool, will people still think it's cool? They will not. We cannot replace what we displace. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, when we do the calculations, we work with the Housing Authority to, for example, so as new units that are brought online, we actually go through and deduplicate them. And so that the Housing Authority gets the credit, the vouchers get the credit if there's a voucher holder living in a unit, in a subsidized unit that's brought online. So we have the numbers. They can't give us the addresses, obviously, but and that's why we ask their help in deduplicating those numbers. So there are thousands of voucher holders in those 9,000 units that we're worried about losing affordability. Yes. We can double check, but I think it's about a quarter. Yeah, it's a lot. Yes. No, that's from the vouchers being underutilized. So we count housing opportunities to the point to the question. So we make sure that we're counting vouchers separately. That's not vouchers separately, but we're counting one occupied unit as one occupied unit. So when we find out that we're underutilizing vouchers, that costs us a loss inside of the market, and that's also can be offset by increased production. But we know that those 534 units, none of them have vouchers in them. So we know that that's 534 net that does not have voucher holders in them. They actually, they usually produce more, and they lose a few because they have voucher holders in them. So let's say there was 600 units created by the City of New Orleans, the Finance Authority, the Housing Authority, and NORA, and 70 of them have voucher holders in them. They get backed out, and that's how you get to the 530. And then the fact that we have voucher holders who are not living in subsidized apartments who have lost their vouchers or not utilizing that voucher, they're out searching for a new apartment right now. That's what offsets the new construction, because it's a net loss of housing opportunities, right? We brought on new ones, but we lost more than we brought on. Yep. Hannah did not lose vouchers, they're just not being utilized. And it's going to take us the full year to find out if that's just a temporary blip or if it's part of a trend that where landlords are refusing to accept vouchers. They're burning through their waiting list very quickly. They're down to 6,000. So you have folks actually not being able to find vouchers and having to turn their voucher back in. That's also why this number is also very concerning and something that we need to keep track of. So no, they haven't lost the ability to, no, they have not lost the ability. It's a utilization problem. That's, again, the market, the systemic issues inside the market, the biases from landlords, the pressures of insurance and utility costs, people not being able to find housing that's suitable for them. That's why it's a concern. Oh, go ahead. Those are averages for the year. Yeah. So the way we've done it is because we normally used to do it, we showed every year. And now we're collapsing it into the 10 years into one column. And so we're still playing around with this. So we would happily accept any critique around it. So what we're doing is the top numbers are what average produced over the 10 years. And then and that's how you get to the 88,190. Yes, the asterisk didn't make it onto this slide. That's what happened. There was an asterisk that's supposed to be explained. That's what happened. So that's what happened. Well, but again, we also got to make sure it makes sense. So the asterisk helps explain it, but is it really the best way to present the information? So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, thank you. Mhm. Who are already prepared. And I want to throw in this conversation for the discussion
for people who are ready right now, but they don't know how to start this program. So this is maybe something we can put out there. I've met, and I'm sure we know people who are like, how do I help? Mm-hmm. So this is a category where maybe we can have some more vouchers and homeowners to make this number go down. Now, getting into the holding people accountable, a question that will come up or a statement that I'm sure we're all curious about is how, and that gets into the AMI, or the affordability. I would like to see more research and data to configure, to your point, at the end of the year, so that way we don't have this conversation going into next year, because I would have said maybe there's just not enough people working on it, because I get a new caseworker every 6 months, but that might not be the case. Okay. And could you maybe quickly for us explain for a tenant who gives a voucher and they only have so much time to on their own. When I got my vouchers, they just print them out. And you see local MRP. Now it's online and it's all these different ways, which is really confusing. So could you make it really short, a paragraph, explain to someone who how if you get your voucher, you finally get your voucher, you get your call, you get your paper, what that looks like really quickly. And it's not what it used to look like, because that was my experience. That I could call and go through people and they say yes, no, and actually go see it. And to add, a lot of these caseworkers who have someone, they may have so many people they're working with, so you have to get an appointment with them to go see this unit. And they have to approve it just the same as you have to decide. Something like that, right?
So largely it still is the case that most of the voucher holders who are seeking housing, once they get issued their vouchers, have to do it unassisted. The Housing Authority, though, has stepped in and secured some assistance from the Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center, who is helping cultivate landlords in high opportunity areas who would be able to benefit from the small area rents. And so they can help those folks who want to live in those areas try to find homes and apartments in those areas. But most folks have to do it on their own. And the last time I talked to the folks at the Fair Housing Action Center, they have been able to help people. It still takes a lot of time, even with their assistance. It's about 60 days that it takes with assistance. 60 days. You have 120 days. And here's this amazing program. It's not available to everybody, but it helps folks and it'll help them find a home in 60 days. What's happening is a lot of people are running out of time with the 120 days, and they're having to turn their vouchers back in. And that is the experience that you have that is continuous. And again, want to be clear, the Housing Authority has rules and regulations around how they want to handle this. A lot of this is about the market. A lot of this is about market constraints. And I must reinforce the biases and prejudices and the fact that we don't have policies in place like that prohibit source of income discrimination, that prohibit landlords from putting up signs saying no Section 8. And so we've got to work on that. We've got to talk. We've got to make sure folks understand it. There's a lot of really, and again, folks always talk about landlords and tenants and those relationships. Again, that has to be worked out. It has to be a symbiotic relationship. So it is a lot. It's still, for a lot of people, it's very similar to the way that it is, the way that it's always been. And it's also similar how anyone who is a renter finds an apartment in New Orleans. This is also part of the issue and part of the challenge. We need to, one of the things that we want to see with the Healthy Homes, full implementation of the Healthy Homes, is making sure that people can find quality housing through the Healthy Homes registration.
And different multiple subsidy conversations are just layered. So I know we have HG Smart. We talked about land first. They had microgrid community lead conversation at one point. It is in a very concise. I know this will be long winded, but this for preservation. To the next last part of this. Because I know we can talk about new construction, Laura and different people on safety things. So what was that just from your story? Because what we're talking about in this multi-partner, even getting ready to start, we have PTA, then we have what I think people, in my opinion, if it's okay for me to say, is when people come out and say we're renters and we're being all generalized. We have seniors have senior citizens. We have artists law. We had something like Soul City at one point. we have these mixed populations, and I'm not so much talking about the AMI or the market. I just mean the populations need housing. And then we have college students who get out of college and they need somewhere to stay. So we have these two-lane conversations with landlords to some degree, and I'm told house to some degree. And what I guess I'm asking for a very short preservation conversation. If symbiotically we were all working together, what is something that you could recommend, whether it's a policy or a preservation piece or a land trust, community doing land trust or something like that in community, right? And later partnership with energy funds or land rooms or lighthouses or something like that. What is something that you could recommend?
Cash. The answer to that is cash. Do you want me to be succinct? Cash. We need about $3 billion to preserve about 9,000 homes. That's a cash problem. It's these units need to be recapitalized. They're about 15 years. Some of them are more than 15 years old. They're coming up on their expirations. This is a recapitalization problem. We need to attract the appropriate amount of capital. We need to do it quickly. We need to do it with discipline. We need to be, and some of the developers have already queued up and gotten their LIHTC. We've also got to talk about the fact that we're not sure right now what's happening with our Louisiana Housing Corporation. Oh no, we're already working on that. We're already working on that. We have a lenders roundtable that is focused on this. We need to get the banks. This is a bank funded problem, as we've seen with the redevelopments of the massive sites in New Orleans East with the Willows and the apartment complexes that are coming back online. That's private capital coming to make investments to ensure that those homes are quality. That is what needs to continue. We need to be talking about significant capital investment.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So we are going to be back next week.